So, unless I lovingly tuck your hair behind your ear in the next 5 minutes, the Russians are going to let off an atomic bomb over West London. Soap, we have to infiltrate a B&B in the Lake District.
Soap, this next mission requires us holding hands.
Soap, we're going deep cover. We're going to Mamma Mia the musical. I've booked us in at ZZ's for a pre-theatre meal. It'll help us blend in.
Hi, everybody. It's GF.
That's right.
It's
a free one.
It's all of us now.
Yeah.
Soap, it's a free one.
Although, I have to share some sad news.
Yeah.
Which is that Alice is no longer with us.
That's true. I feel like every time we talk about the startup Ambulance, we get a different host. I'm finally doing a thing I've been trailing on Twitter for the longest time of changing my name to November, like the month, like the NATO phonetic alphabet.
Because you respect the troops.
Exactly. Because, I want to go on a romantic getaway with Captain Price. And I thought the best way to do that would be to change my name to something military sounding. Yeah, no, so this is 100% serious. All of it, including the Captain Price bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 got very interesting.
Yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare is an automate. It is a dating simulator, and that's the correct way of playing it. But yeah, no, I am fully changing my name.
We're the only two men who understand each other, Soap. After all these years, we've been through the same things. It gets easier, Soap.
You just have to do a lot of really romantic stuff in SAS selection, It's mostly about wine pairings.
I'm sorry, please carry on.
No. That was it. That was my whole bit.
Yeah.
Is I am changing my name from Alice to November. Please and thank you. Yeah. So you're out one host, but you're up one new one.
But also joining us from beyond the grave, it's Hussein.
Technically not beyond the grave, very much inside the grave. Because
1 foot in the grave, you're Victor Meldrew.
The backstory of this being that I did have to go to a funeral earlier this week, and as I was walking back from burying one of my relatives, a very sad moment. I was on my phone, as you'd expect, and
Self-care.
In a cemetery, there are several, the way in which they make the burials more efficient is to sort of half dig it so that when the bodies come in, you don't have to dig new ones. And so long story short,
only afford a shallow grave.
I tripped and fell into a shallow grave, and when that happened, and I was very much in full view of everyone. Some of whom were just sort of shaking their heads at me to show they disagreed with it.
Wooden box.
There was no box in there. It was just a pre-dug grave, which I think has its own sort of that has its own spooky connotation.
Yeah, the person they buried in that grave wasn't even the first person in that grave.
God, imagine that.
It's like hot desking.
I hadn't even thought about that, but
you broke it in for them. You pre-warmed their grave.
But that's not they'll when they're sort of buried and the spirit will be yo, what this be smelling funky.
Yeah, it smells of vape in here.
I just want a really clean drop of you saying this be smelling funky.
But when this did happen, I did immediately tell you because I thought it'd be very funny, and I did not expect to have to retell that story on the show. So I do appreciate
it is
the
very
lowlights
funny.
reel.
Look, this is a sacred pact that we're in. Anytime any one of us humiliates ourselves one way or the other, it's going into the show.
I'm taking all your secrets I know about you to my shallow grave. So
yeah. Now you're out of it. Now you've got a little achievement for one of the relatively few people who have climbed out of a grave.
What I will say is falling into a grave and sort of having to lie there for a few seconds, it does really change your perspective on the world.
Why did you have to lie there for a few seconds? Were you doing the Yamcha death pose?
Well, my thinking was more this is probably never going to happen again until I am actually dead, by which point I probably won't appreciate it. So,
might as well appreciate.
You don't want to be in a Kill Bill situation.
Why not enjoy it for a few more seconds?
Anyway, we're going to talk about the some items in the news today, and then we are going to, in honor of our new co-host, revisit Ambulance, the first thing that you talked about when you first came on as a guest many years ago.
Yeah, and I made myself indispensable.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
No,
First news item: graves. Are people stealing them? I turned up to bury my grandmother. There was someone in it.
There's this podcaster, you know.
Goldilocks and the three graves.
I mean, I'm now just imagining like like a grave, like a landlord, who's just like, you know, a grave lord. That's just like this plot, this plot that you're squatting in is actually 2,600 a month.
He'll dig you up if you don't pay the rent.
If you were just laid there, if you just stayed there, you would have had you've got it started on adverse possession. You know, you would have had the squatters' rights.
There are stories of that happening very quickly because I can't remember where it was. But like there was sort of like a cemetery that was owned privately, and the guy who owned it wanted to sell the land. And I don't know what happened to it, but the idea was if he was going to sell the land to developers, like they would have to dig up the graves and sort of put them somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a lovely single aspect space. It's about 6 feet by 2 feet by 6 feet.
You could
they're
put a
using it as a grave, but like you could a home office.
Yeah, it's a breakfast nook, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Storage.
Let's weirdly, I was going to say, let's leave the graveyard behind for a jarring change in tone. We must, I think, discuss, before we move on, the ongoing, I would say, the grim conclusion to the media circus that has surrounded the murder of Brianna Ghey. And I think we can start with the fact that in Parliament, while Starmer was doing his usual thing,
PMQs,
he had Brianna Ghey's mother, Esther, was in the sort of galleries, right? And Sunak comes up to the dispatch box and it says, well, I'm ready to use the line. I'm ready to use
he's doing
the line.
a bit of it's BBC News has since described this as a jibe. I've seen it elsewhere described as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So Sunak comes up with his Tommy Cooper fez on to the dispatch box and says, have you heard the one about about knowing what a woman is? Just like that. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
The weird thing was he died at the dispatch box, and no one noticed for 45 minutes.
Yeah. So he does the thing because he has been conditioned like a dog to be like, I know how to make all of these, you know, like hooting morons clap for me.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what a woman is, which is not a trans woman, apparently.
Starmer is saying, you know, he's saying he knows what's going to happen, but he doesn't even know what a woman is, which is the line that they use over and over and over and over again, and it's always reported as trouble for labor, as it's unable to define what. And of course, labor is able to define what a woman is. They use a very transphobic definition, more or less.
Yeah,
not transphobic enough, John.
Yeah,
but so this kind of seemed to shock even Starmer. And he since did the you know, how dare you at a time like this. Any other week of the year would be totally acceptable, and I would, you know, completely fold to what you were saying. But, you know, as we know, in our sort of like liberal understanding, the most important person in relation to trans rights is parent of one. And so what you've done is you have transgressed here by being rude and cruel.
Well, because it's still parent of dead child, regardless of transness, which, as we know, marks it down a few points in their eyes, but still dead child parent. That's pretty sympathetic. So
yeah,
absolutely. And so now Sunak is sort of like doubling, tripling down on this. And I just, the thing is,
it was a bit of banter.
Yeah, I was doing irony. I guess the thing is that it occurs to me that this is grotesquely cynical on Starmer's part. Like, given the transphobia is still abundant in the Labour Party, given the fact that had Brianna Ghey not died on the spot, had she gotten to hospital, his shadow health secretary wouldn't have let her in a women's ward. There's it's absolutely grotesque to make the Labour Party the kind of lesser of two evils here, which is barely. Especially given that he met with her mother after the fact and said, we need more mental health support for kids. Fucking human gelatin mold that he is. It occurs to me, right, that this really did rattle him because what you might dimly describe as his values are those of kind of metropolitan upper middle class prosecutor of it's nice to be nice. This is both cruel and weird. I'm sure that he personally knows, likes, respects trans people. It just doesn't matter to him when it's sort of convenient to gain power. And so this sort of moment where he was like, wait a second, this is really gross. I have this feeling that this is not going to change anything in that sense, but the sort of the best prospect for making Britain less transphobic within the electoral process, within the political process, is ultimately going to have to rely on that kind of like revulsion of liberals being like, this is gross and weird. And it's important to just be nice to people who you think are weird anyway, you know? And if they can kind of like repeat that, which was very successful in terms of like marriage equality and lots of gay rights stuff, if they can repeat that thing of like, it's important to be tolerant to people, even though we know they're weird, you still have to be nice, then it will still be terrible, but it will be a bit less terrible. And I think if this moment can be sort of like used for those purposes, then all's the good. But I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, because we've said this before, that so much of like the really rabid transphobia stuff is just so weird.
Yeah, truly.
That it's hard to sell to the electorate, because it's just like, well, if you saw a trans person in the supermarket, would you behave like this, or would you simply go about your day? I reckon probably just go about your day for most people. You don't have to understand it. You just have to ignore it.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. You don't have to get involved in any way. Just ignore it and go about your day.
Sunak doing this reminds me a bit of the DeSantis Black Sun campaign ad, you know, where it's like, you have hitched your wagon to a bunch of extremely online freaks who think this is the baseline culture war thing of how we're going to like divide society. And then people look at it and go, this makes you look like an obvious Nazi. Why are you doing this? Stop doing this.
And he would say, hungry.
Well, so this is actually what I think we can link this as well in these terms anyway, into like the ongoing story of the British Conservative Party sort of descending into online strangeness.
Oh yeah, we've got some Liz Truss later about that very
exactly.
thing.
Liz Truss is back and not realizing, right, that her career in British politics is over. She now has to be an American lecturer, which will be way more lucrative, and she'll have more fun with it.
Yeah, sort of course convener at the University of Austin.
Yeah, we support this.
Yeah, but talking
go
about...
get the bag, Liz.
But launching her movement, Popular Conservatism, which is finally trying real conservatism. But she didn't get a chance to when she was in office, I guess.
University of Austin bankrupted by the bathrobe bill.
yeah, real conservatism has never been tried. Yeah.
She can get through and we had no idea. I got boys bringing truckloads of them up to our office.
So this is Liz Truss saying, almost proudly, you know, too many of our colleagues are looking at what jobs they get when they leave Parliament. They want to be popular at London dinner parties. I never get invited to those parties.
Well, because it clashes with verboten, you know?
Yeah.
Also, lambasting wokeism, net zero, immigration, saying that governments are being stymied when trying to respond to them in a conservative way, saying, I believe a fundamental issue is that for years and years and years...
The sequel to Years and Years.
Conservatives have not taken on the left-wing extremists. She's the honorable minister for going on the computer, and so is Rishi Sunak, and so are the rest of them.
You know what this Liz Truss thing is like specifically? It's like when a band who were one-hit wonders put out a greatest hits thing years later, and you have to have all of the B-sides and stuff. Yeah. So like Liz Truss is like, not like one hit, I am going to crash the economy. That's like track one, side one, and then the rest of it is wokery, environmentalism, socialism.
She's the Venga Boys.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so I listened to the Jeremy Vine show today, as I often do.
Of course.
And there was like one of the topics that he had on it was sort of just people just debating like what they made of like Sunak making this comment in the Commons. And it was amazing watching like media people and even members of the general public, most of whom were being pretty disapproving of it, all being in a kind of fairly milquetoast way, just struggling to find an explanation of why he would say something like this that isn't just like Rishi Sunak's a stupid cunt who didn't think about any of this, because even strategically it's just a stupid thing to say, because what's going to happen is this. Like, it just makes you look like a stupid cunt. But it was so like British media where it's like, well, of course, we can't consider the proposition that he's a stupid cunt. We've got to come up with some like master plan, be it Machiavellian or otherwise, why he's doing this. It's like, no, he's a stupid cunt. Yeah. And that's why he said it, open and shut.
I'm maybe going to hand it to Starmer, that maybe this is part of the Starmer master plan, because if you're playing poker against someone who like folds every hand, 500 consecutive hands, then maybe one time when you like trip over your own dick because you expect him to fold and be like, yeah, Mr. Speaker, I actually don't know what a woman is and I'm gay, then like the one time that doesn't work out for you, until then it's been a winning strategy.
Starmer Jutsu. We're all in the Starmy army now.
Yeah, if you just get like to like 99% transphobia levels and just stay there, then eventually your opponent will hit the 100% marker and will flip over again.
Yeah. When your enemy is making a mistake, be sure to say, excuse me. well, I don't think there's any need for that.
Also, I think this goes back around where it's easy to say, right, that the only norms these people respect are politeness. There's no sort of thoroughgoing idea of like actual, liberation for these groups of people that they actually care about. But I think it goes back to this broader theme, which is that the more specifically that the right, with its, I'd say, political space now thoroughly occupied by labor, the more that this has forced them into a very strange place. And they are going to be strange for quite a while, and they're probably going to be quite off-putting for a while, but eventually, right, they, even after all of these issues, like, just as, like, I think in the 90s and 2000s, I think, as you sort of alluded to earlier, right, Nova, this is a little bit like with equal marriage. They just got too weird with opposing it. When the conservative right starts talking about, like,
there's nothing wrong with it, so
getting too lurid in their details of what a person marrying a dog would be like, you get like, okay, you're off-putting now. This is weird. I'm going to go away from you politically.
Yeah, you sort of hope in liberalism's ability to kind of like fence off an acceptable discourse and get to the point where, like, what is a woman, or like, is a trans woman a woman, becoming the sort of question, analogous to, is gay sex sinful, right? Because a question that a journalist only ever asks when they know that the person they're interviewing has a weird, wrong answer to it,
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, they really read the room wrong when they tried to appall the British electorate with the idea of a man marrying his dog. Like, would you kiss and fuck your dog? And yes, mostly, is what most of them would say.
Yeah, the British electorate, which is like, solid plurality white women, is like...
Yeah. Would you tongue kiss your dog? Yes! I told you last week, yeah!
Well, Gloucestershire has gone very hard for not one of the usual parties.
Lord Buckethead on his dog-kissing platform. Yeah. It's what you need to stand on to kiss Clifford the big red dog.
But before we move on, I want to talk about one other thing regarding this sort of whole story, which is the mother, Esther Jai. She then goes on Laura Kuenssberg and engages in what appears to be the only form of sort of bottom-up political advocacy that is allowed anymore.
Yeah, the grieving parent campaign.
Yeah, the parent of a murdered child requests a crackdown.
Yes,
basically.
Because what she wants is to, ban kids from going on social media on their phones, which is, I think we can agree, probably a pretty bad idea for all sorts of reasons.
Well, and more to the point, just simply unworkable. Like, won't work, no point suggesting it, can't be done.
Yeah, but, like, she's not the only one to be doing this. So, Sinead O'Malley, who is the mother of this, like, young woman, the student who got murdered by, like, a guy on a rampage in Nottingham, she's been campaigning for, like, mandatory prison terms for people found carrying knives. Also a terrible idea. And it strikes me that this is, as you say, Riley, this is a sort of acceptable space, one of the few left to do policy proposals, is if your child has been murdered and you are grieving, then a journalist will sort of like stick a microphone in your face and be like, well, what policy do you want to be different because of this?
Yeah. You've won one change to society.
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of hanging would you like to bring back?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That change can only be more repressive. We would ideally like it to have as little to do with how your child died as possible. Get after it. And I just feel so exploitative. And the thing that strikes me as well is I think a lot about Stephen Lawrence's parents, right? Because they were kind of like, in many ways, the original campaigning grieving parents. And the media didn't hand shit to them. They had to, like, pursue that, and they were sort of like surveilled and sabotaged at length by like huge segments of the British government. And what they wanted was entirely just and reasonable and correct. And the Mail worked out that they could use that to sell newspapers. And since then, I think there's been a recognition that like grieving parents is a good way to sort of like activate the campaigning press mode. And now that we've done the one where the press is going to campaign for something good to happen, now we can just do it for so just some other shit, whatever, make it illegal to vape.
A grieving parent who's like, I want Katie Price to have those tits brought back up to size. Like, well, that's what they want. It's what it's not up to us.
Yeah,
we've got Katie Price on the line.
It's like disrespectful to them if you don't think that that's a good idea, right? It just feels nakedly exploitative, and it feels like, I think, even as someone who has a lot of political opinions, right? If I, God forbid, ever, had my child murdered, I think I would be in, absolutely no frame of mind to do fucking policy white papers. And anyone who asked me to do that, I think would so transparently, have an agenda about what they wanted me to say that it would feel really gross. And this feels really gross.
Well, it's like the dichotomy between, do you want to enact this bad policy that won't work, or do you not care about murdered children?
Yeah, exactly. And particularly with Brianna Jai's mother, it's like, do we want to address any of the stuff that is responsible for her death? Well, not really, because that's all stuff that both parties have been trafficking in for years. So I guess we can pin this one on social media again,
And it's also like getting someone who's clearly probably not in their best state of mental health and just being like, what do you think? The nation's media, and we're going to pull apart whatever it is that you say.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe just let her be sad about her dead child. Maybe we don't need.
No, but you can't, because so much of media training, and I say this as someone who had to sort of do it, all the door stopping. And that sort of sense that the door stopping, because I think I've told this story before, but I remember one time that I had sort of said that, hey, if someone's kid died, is it necessarily good to go do that? Why wouldn't you just be able to sort of give them some space and be like, nope, you just got to do it. That's just what we all do. Don't think about it too much. Jump out of the grave and
you're just like, what?
And go to the next grave over. Yeah. And so it does sort of feel like, okay, well, even in your worst moments, you are still sort of coerced into the media system that runs British society. And at a certain point, you end up, and it's the worst case thing to sort of for a parent to have to accept that, whatever we sort of know about all the structural issues, that sort of all the structural problems that led to these types of tragedies, ultimately you then become this part of this sort of performance which exists completely externally and outside of you. And the whole point of it is that unless you sort of have a lot of charity and support behind you, that will just sort of be forgotten. And I think, the sort of stuff that happened in Parliament today, or in the Commons today, and the sort of comments that Rishi Sunak made, is just really indicative of the fact that she sort of served her purpose of kind of lukewarmly endorsing the sort of the online safety bill, and its sort of more reactionary elements, now you're done.
Well, because also, whenever you get something like this, that's a kind of tragic but very unusual case. Not to say that transphobia is unusual, but specifically a child being murdered by other children is thankfully very unusual. It happens extremely rarely. Yeah. Everyone's like, well, this has never happened before, and now it happens every Tuesday. It's a crime. And it's like, well, no, children have always murdered other children. Again, very occasionally. It's not a new thing. It's not phones making them do it. The James Bulger case when I was a very young kid.
And no one was asking his parents shit. No one was sort of sticking a microphone in their face and being like, what do you want done about this?
There's a lot of I think there's a lot of similarities to the stuff that we were talking about regarding knives and stabbings and stuff as well, where the sort of the scale of stabbings in London are massively overinflated and massively exaggerated for that political purposes. But okay, if you want to talk about the increase in knife violence, yeah, you can do it. There's a lot of literature on it. There's a lot of evidence to sort of suggest that, that
no, that's gay. We're not having any of that.
Yeah, but you can't do it because talking about structural issues is gay, right? And you're not allowed to do that. So instead, it just sort of goes back to the only answers that are sort of, you are there to sort of give. And that's it. It's when they ask you oh, what do you think about this stuff? The most insulting thing is that if you actually do think critically about what happened and be hey, I think there were lots of sort of social situations and lots of sort of, the fact that we have sort of a decaying state and that affects people on a personal level, and it affects everyone eventually. You're not allowed to say that. Yeah. That is a thing that you will sort of be booed at for saying. And so you sort of recognize at a certain point, but okay, your job is just to sort of be reactionary as possible, or your job as a journalist, as someone who actually does get the access to speak to a parent and like does have policymakers like actually listen to them. Your job is really just to sort of justify kind of bills that are like struggling through like the Commons or the Lords.
It's quite coercive in its way, and I think again I'm still thinking about the Lawrences because like that was the stuff that they wanted was again sectioned off and like cauterized so quickly, even by the papers that were ostensibly supporting them. Like as we know, it didn't make the Met Police much less racist, right? Having the sort of inquiry into structural racism in it. But it was something that allowed, the police and papers to kind of like dust their hands and be like, good, we've addressed this. Thank you. Let's not think about this or any implications it might have now or at any future time.
So just sort of drawing a circle around all of it before moving on, I think that if you look back at the entire story, it is once again, at every point, everyone from sort of the political and media sphere has treated it with the maximum amount of pure cynicism. And at every point, I think, murdered child has taken a kind of backseat.
Yeah, fully. If you get murdered in a sort of like gruesome enough way, then you just kind of become public property. And the way in which this country and its media particularly treats people who become public property is nauseating.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to jarringly shift the tone again because we are revisiting an old friend for the rest of the episode. Ambulance. They changed their name from ambulance to ambulance.
They've taken out another vowel. They're not fucking around.
Pretty soon they'll just be n's.
We're gonna keep removing vowels until you take notice.
Blunds, yeah.
Blunds.
Yeah. So then start adding vowels in again, and they deliver you a little salmon pancake.
Yeah. Fucking Ron DeSantis when someone shows him a room full of balloons. Balloons.
Yeah. So this is ambulance, which we talked about. If you remember, it was basically a kind of Uber for ambulances.
Yeah.
And this is from a Medium article about it in 2019.
I hate the surge pricing when you're trying to get an ambulance.
Basically.
Well, after applying and interviewing with ambulance, Corey, this person that's being written about, under a fake name, received an offer and went to the company's office in Carson, California for orientation. The office, he remembers, was pretty legit and modern looking, reminding him of an Apple store. But his experience quickly soured, saying that in his orientation class of approximately 32 people, most employees seemed quite strange, as if they were turned down by every other ambulance company. He says one new hire told him that his only previous work experience was 12 years as a seasonal Halloween scare actor at Universal Studios.
Quick, we need to wake this guy up.
Yeah.
He's too sleepy.
But you can't touch him.
Just
How
like-
can we wake him up without touching him?
Just like doing
Yeah.
the like bursting the inflated paper bag thing with a bag valve mask. Just like
This guy's got the hiccups. He's called an ambulance.
No, we're an ambulance that only deals with frivolous things.
That's right.
So, though he said he'd been told in his job interviews he'd be paid $16 an hour, the orientation, he was told that the rate was only $12. An ambulance told him the station he'd be working at had changed to a location an hour further from his home. After 20 minutes as an employee, he quit. He signed a resignation form and received a check for 4 hours of work.
I mean, the thing here is, and I think I may have said as much on the OG, like ambulance episode under a different name, that I think there are a lot of private ambulance companies that are like this, or more like this than anyone would like to admit. This is just putting a kind of like startup gloss on it, but I am excited to find out all the ways in which it's worse.
Oh, it's stupid, and there are some fellas with some names and get involved here.
Awesome. Have they taken the vowels out?
No, they've left
Ambassador,
them in.
These names, you are spoiling us.
Stivjans.
Okay. So basically, the way to understand their corporate structure is that there's a company called DocGo.
Great.
DuckDuckGo,
and
the search engine. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, the DocGo.
Duck Goose, yeah.
And they own a number of subsidiaries, all of which are basically related, all of which basically do the same thing, which is patient, often non-emergency patient transport.
Yeah.
Like getting people from here to there.
Yeah, sick people.
Yeah, getting him to the hiccup doctor.
Yeah, exactly. If you have like the chronic hiccups, then you got to get the sort of like ambulance to and from hospital for your weekly like hiccup appointments.
For your weekly paper bag pop.
Yeah, exactly. They've got the like scare actor in there with you. It's like,
Yeah. We've triaged your hiccups, and whilst bad, they're not life-threatening. So we're going to take you to the day center for hiccups.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, so that kind of non-emergency patient transport is one of the easily outsourceable bits of ambulance services. This is another one of these like things that we look at so often, where it's like public service looking at what the easiest offcuts are, and this is one.
Yeah, and they also will do things like mobile medicine for stuff you don't need a doctor for, like giving you a vaccination.
Yeah, sure.
So that's the basics of it, right? So DocGo,
This is your hiccup vaccine.
DocGo, it's just they shoot you up with a little bit of a paper bag,
Yeah,
a
that's
deactivated
one. It's like homeopathy. I'm going to prescribe you to watch the last hour and a half of the film Hereditary. I think that's going to keep the hiccups at bay for a while.
So DocGo is leading the proactive healthcare revolution, they say on their website. Our AI-powered technology.
Cool.
Keep in mind that they tout that they're an AI company as we go.
I love that we're just sticking that into any company now. Like, oh, we do like ambulances for people with the hiccups. It's AI. Don't ask how.
I have loved learning all about sort of the people involved in this and the AI claims. They make one of my favorite spurious AI claims.
Ooh.
Which we're going to get
And
to.
Riley's read a lot of these, so you know it's going to be good.
So our AI-powered technology, 6,000 plus mobile medical clinicians, and relentless dedication to compassionate care help ensure we keep you and your family out of the hospital.
Okay. But isn't their job taking you
I was going to say...
Yeah, that's the proactive healthcare.
The ambulance that drives you somewhere else. Just drops you off, kicks you out of the curb.
It just leaves you in the woods.
The ambulance that takes you as far away as possible from every
By the time
hospital.
we find our way out of here, we'll be better.
So, mobile medical care helps drive better patient outcomes. DocGo is committed to delivering high-quality, highly accessible healthcare for all, leveraging our agile approach to bring care to patients where it's needed and when it's needed.
Topical, you know?
Yeah.
Like, agile companies, still a
love
current
agile.
thing, yeah.
So, but that's like the parent company. Ambulance in the UK is specifically patient transport. And it's called communityambulance.co.uk, but all its branding is Ambulance by DocGo.
Yeah,
like you can see.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
there's like a billion different ambulance companies that do this. If you see something that looks a bit like an ambulance but is fucked in some way, it is inevitably one of these like patient transport services that have been outsourced to God knows who.
Vauxhall Corsa with ambulance painted on the back.
So we know who. Because it was outsourced to these people, among others.
Okay.
So this is probably one of my favorite taglines because of what the sort of converse of it implies, which is communityambulance.co.uk. A great ambulance service does not appear by accident.
Wait, so their ambulance service did appear by accident?
It's the Aristotelian spontaneous generation theory of ambulance services. You just leave enough guys in sort of box vans around, and an ambulance service will just happen.
In order to bake an apple pie, you must first invent a patient transport service.
So we are a new purposeful type of ambulance service.
Previously it was just lackadaisical. The Loosh ambulance that kind of drives you in the direction of the woods and then just kind of
They didn't know where they were going.
It was the Manic Pixie Dream Paramedic.
I hate when my EMT can't see through her bangs, you know?
Well, you see, we'd built all of these ambulances and the ambulance drivers to drive them, but we hadn't built any hospitals, so there was nowhere for them to go. It's like a really bad Civ 6 run, just like hasn't thought through the layout at all.
Highly productive, with leading-edge digital technology woven through with purpose to deliver social value in the communities we serve. That wasn't written by someone who speaks any language.
No, it's written by ChatGPT.
Yeah. The world is getting smaller, but each community is different.
Easier to get to hospital, though.
The world is getting smaller, but each community is
because we're
different.
mining the Earth's core. That's what we're really spending all the money on.
And healthcare economies can be poles apart, but people are the same everywhere, and we are people caring for people.
Okay. Cool.
Ambulance Community Partners is a new purposeful type of ambulance service provider that's adding social value and sharing big tech, capital B, capital T, with small ambulance providers. Our crews deliver the highest level of patient care, capital C, and are connected and cooperative, capital C's.
So it's some kind of like branded care that they offer. This isn't the traditional care that you're thinking of. This is actually an acronym.
So I went to their like about our technology page.
Yeah.
Great.
And
you know where the good stuff is.
oh, of course I do. So I went to their technology page where they were going to describe all of this like AI and digital stuff that they're claiming that would say like, here is the technology stack that we're using. Here's what we're using to do the thing, which most companies that claim to be technologies would. There is a blank page that just says register here for more information.
Cool.
Wow. Sign up to the ambulance mailing list.
Yeah, if you want to know what's in our ambulances, why don't you try developing chronic hiccups, you stupid son of a bitch?
Yeah. Why don't you become a paper bag manufacturer and then we'll have to deal with you?
I'm looking forward to like the sort of email on Mental Health Day being like, great way to like look after yourself. Make sure you're drinking 2 liters of water a day.
But this is, what's the AI? What's the cutting edge technology? They won't say. There's a place to put your email. That's the technology. We're collecting emails.
Did you put the show email in it? Are we going to find out? Are we going to get updated like when we subscribed to Neom and it ruined both of our YouTubes?
I did try to sign up. I so far don't know much. All I could find about their technological claims was one of their areas they expanded into was Wisconsin. In the press release for their expansion into Wisconsin, they said that the company's proprietary AI technology, which again, we always know when you say, we have proprietary AI technology, it's either nothing or it's a guy or it's another older technology you're calling AI.
Yeah.
They've got an RMPC running Microsoft Access.
It says, provides intelligent fleet routing, accurate ETAs, and real-time GPS tracking for enhanced patient engagement and peace of mind.
Oh, they're using Google Maps.
If you replace patient with student, that's just Zoom again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're hiring EMTs from out of town to like do patient transport, and you can track them in real time. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? It is
when the ambulances are a big battery.
Yeah. So,
cooks a pizza
check out the
back,
Check out the bonus episode what we did with Paris to get that joke that Milo just
is that a
made.
callback to a future episode?
No, it's a callback to a bonus episode.
Oh, okay, yeah. Get on the Patreon.
Yeah.
You don't get all the callbacks if you're not on the Patreon.
So, their footprint in the UK, meanwhile, has
You're
expanded.
using a free version of Trashfuture. It's got limited functionality.
So their footprint in the UK has been expanding, where on October 9th, this was a press release on New York Business Wire, says, DocGo Incorporated, a leading provider of technology-enabled mobile health services, a claim we will question in the next 20 minutes or so, announced today that his UK-based subsidiary, Ambulance Community Partners, has been awarded a 5-year contract to provide emergency and urgent ambulance services, so not just patient transfer.
People with really bad hiccups.
Yeah. With acute hiccups.
For South Central Ambulance Services NHS Foundation Trust.
Oh, God. Because you can't get a real ambulance the same day anymore, so you're just going to get the fucking big blue AI-powered bus driven by a guy who used to work in a haunted house.
Well, it's driven by Turkish Steve. You've got to schedule your hiccups now.
Turkish Steve's, like, cyan-painted Bedford rascal. Yeah.
The Bedford Rascal sounds like a kind of like a TikTok celebrity. Like he's outside the All Souls public convenience in Bedford,
Big
pranking
FBPE
people.
sort of account, you know?
So
I'm the Bedford Rascal. So I've got a tin of paint here, and we're gonna fuck up Dixon's.
See, I was expecting you to, like, get a sort of British shit small van reference.
Oh,
Milo,
I
but-
did get it, but then I was just like, it's amazing that there was a van called the Bedford Rascal.
as well as a Victorian criminal.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
the Bedford Rascal, the constabulary on his tail. But he's got a combustion-powered van.
So the services under the contract will include 16 ambulances per day, providing paramedic-led frontline urgency and urgent response.
Urgency?
Paramedic frontline urgent, and emergency. Also, paramedic-led.
Yeah, what does that
Yeah.
mean? Does that mean there's one paramedic sitting in the control room telling them what to do? Does it mean that they are crewed with paramedics?
Or like, there's a crew of 3 and there's like 1 paramedic and 2 haunted house guys.
Yeah, I mean, does it mean that they have a paramedic who is like an AI? An AI that they're calling a paramedic with this?
Okay, I'm going to give you the adrenaline now. It's going to feel a bit cold. And there's 2 guys over his shoulder going, ooh, ooh.
Mobilization is set to begin in October of this year.
To be fair,
So this was press. Sorry, go ahead.
few scarier experiences than being intubated by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So, in many
Yeah,
ways,
that's right.
that guy is like exceeding his original job.
I can't
skill.
intubate him. I'm not allowed to touch the customers.
Yeah.
I've been
Just
told.
no, being intubated by a guy.
I got intubated at Disneyland Haunted House.
It's being intubated by a guy whose only training was a PowerPoint about data protection.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's right.
So basically, right, this was from October 2023 that this was announced.
Guy's intubating you, and he's like, no names.
So remember that this was announced in October 2023,
Yeah.
right? This is when the UK or this particular trust looked directly at Ambulance and said, you know what? We trust these people to deliver AI-enabled paramedic-led emergency and urgent
Because
care.
they're not on the Patreon. They hadn't heard the previous episode, and that's why it's so important.
Genuinely, it should not be the case. And this is something we've talked about before, is like councils getting defunded. I'm sure NHS trusts are in the same position, especially ambulance services, where it's like, us dickheads, should not be the last line of scrutiny and defense against hiring these people, these fucking like circus clowns to do your to do your emergency care.
No, but that's very unfair. They're haunted house workers, not clowns.
Excuse me. Yeah, the circus clown is actually a higher calling. You know, I have to go to
Yeah,
clown
clowns
school
are
for that.
actually scary.
Yeah, this is our clown-led response to
This basically is a clown-led response to.
yeah.
We've had to expand the footwells on the ambulances. The size of the shoes these guys are wearing, they don't make an ambulance.
So the company
You can get a
also
lot of them in there, though.
the company is also providing. I was wondering if you're going to do that.
No, that would be perfect, the clown ambulance, because the ambulance is so oversubscribed, just like 50 patients being pulled out of one ambulance.
Like a string of silk scarves.
Yeah.
No, the company is also currently providing medical transport services for Northeast Ambulance, Northwest Ambulance, East of England Ambulance, and Yorkshire Ambulance.
Jesus, that's so many. Like, just while we weren't looking, like, the timeline here is I go on the fucking Trashfuture podcast to talk about ambulance. Nobody listens. Everybody hires these fuckers to do everything. They kill your nan, putting a clown nose on her while she's going into cardiac arrest. We do another podcast about it, and I notice. That's insane.
Adam Curtis' voice, but while they were riffing about the lagoon, something very strange was happening in Yorkshire. Smash cut to some found footage.
Yeah. The paramedic who's leading the paramedic-led thing has a big board, and he turns around really quickly, and he hits you over the back of the head with it.
Yeah, all the paramedics are the Joker now.
So I want to talk a little bit about what ambulance has gone through in America in the last year before.
Is it strength to strength?
Well, I've written the word embattled here.
Oh, boy.
Oh, they're like Sam Allardyce.
So again, this is not just like maintaining their services that they have here, but expanding them.
Yeah.
In a big way.
As the public sector ones contract.
Yes. So in September, CEO of DocGo, Anthony Capone, resigned.
Hey,
Sorry.
they got him on tax evasion.
No, that's the weird thing.
No,
they didn't actually.
No.
Tax evasion.
So okay, hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
About again, Tony Capone.
Yeah, Tony Capone.
So hold that thought about how Al Capone was God on tax evasion.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna come back.
Okay.
Not tax evasion. I'm not alleging he's a tax evader.
Okay, fine. Are we allowed to do bits about the clown ambulance being mobbed up clowns?
Yes.
I'm really going through the legals in his head there.
The Gambino
on
clown
balance,
family.
yes. Yeah.
So in
One of the
September,
5 families, they're clowns.
in September,
You gotta go to the big top and talk,
be
talk
careful.
to Johnny Big Shoes.
Be careful if you ever have a sit down with him. Look at the chair first.
That's right.
So
They got whooping. Guy, just a dead mobster who's got like a slightly wet face. And they're like, they got him with the fucking squirty flour. I hate these sick fucks.
So okay,
We gotta do something.
in September, you're going to the mattresses, but you squeak when you land. So in
They sent us around
September,
to whack this guy. He's swinging through the air on a fucking trapeze. What am I, Tarzan? Paulie and Chris just like shooting up at the trapeze with pistols.
so in September, the CEO, so the New York Times, Again, did this get written about in Britain that much? Doesn't seem to.
No, of course not.
It did a couple of years ago when they were like fucking up quite badly in Liverpool, but it never sort of got to be the kind of national scandal that maybe it should.
Journalists listen to this podcast. What are you doing, guys? Like,
So they're FT journalists. Only we and sort of other business people in other countries.
Ambulance is in dire need of the Wiggins treatment. Get Wiggins on this.
Okay. In September, this is in the New York Times, CEO Anthony Capone resigned amid growing scrutiny from officials in New York City, as well as the state, over the handling of its migrant care contract with the city, which was the very bad thing that, they did. Capone also faced allegations that he falsely represented his educational background, which is the thing they got him for.
They kind of did get him on tax evasion.
Yeah. They got him on a homework charge.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like,
Perfect.
he claimed to be like Dr. Capone and he wasn't, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, he's like fucking Bill Ackman's wife.
Yeah. Basically, there's now a class action lawsuit against them, saying, but from their investors, saying
My
that
hiccups are worse.
it's from their investors, saying that they made materially false and misleading statements, basically being like, we're doing great, and then it turns out they weren't doing great. We have all this great technology. Turns out they didn't. A lot of the times this happens.
That's like me when my mum used to call.
Yeah. A lot of the times that this happens, the investors will then file a class action lawsuit. Like it's sort of a bit of a technical thing. Matt
It's
Levine,
part of the dance.
Yeah, basically, it's like, well, you can say that if you said you're doing well and you're not doing well, and you say you have this technology and you don't, that's a kind of security. Yeah, you can say that's a kind of securities fraud, which is a bit tenuous. But it's like the Matt Levine argument that anything that a company does can be construed as securities fraud. Anyway, that's a tangent. So basically, the company was given a no-bid contract by the state of New York in May to bus migrants upstate and care for them as New York City ran out of room.
Yeah, it's fully just like the public service of last resort here.
I talked to Tony Capone. We got all these Mexicans. I'm telling you, they got the hiccups.
It's not
they
even...
got the hiccups real bad.
But it's not even a public service, because the public service of last resort is commonly thought of as the police. But now it's the public service of last resort where we're not allowed to own anything, and the police are now too highly paid to just be moving migrants around, so we have to invent a new and worse public service of last resort.
In Britain, the public service of last resort is not the police because there are no police left. It's A&E. Yeah. Whatever fucked up thing, just shove it in A&E, and we'll figure it out later.
So in August, Governor Kathy Hochul ordered a probe into the company over complaints by migrants who claimed they were lured to Albany by the company with promises of jobs and legal assistance, and then essentially abandoned.
The ambulance that takes you to the woods, it's real.
Lured to Albany, what a phrase.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit more about this, again, the quite substantive thing that they did wrong, but let's talk a little bit about what Tony Capone lied. The taxes he evaded, so to speak, metaphorically.
Yeah.
Capone's sudden exit from the company was apparently tied to false academic credentials in his professional biography. This is from the Times Union.
And it was one Chicago cop that got the better of him.
Which he attributed to an error, which he said should have been corrected.
You send one of theirs to the hospital, they send one of yours to the woods.
Yeah, that's right.
We send one of theirs to the big top. They send one of ours to the lion cages.
But fucking Emperor Caligula.
I don't know. Circuses have lions. Yeah. Unless it's Cirque du Soleil.
But particularly throwing people to the lions isn't something they do at the circus. Unless it's like the Circus Maximus. What kind of circuses were you going to? This is another like Riley's grandfather's story.
Yeah.
Well, they owned a circus in northern Quebec where they then throw the French to the lions for the entertainment of the townspeople.
Deep Quebec where they're still martyring Christians. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Quebec where they brought over like a star room, like religion.
Yeah. Tabernacle.
People always argue about what the successor state to the Roman Empire is, and the answer is clearly Quebec.
Yeah, that's right.
So my graduate degree, he said in a speech to investors, is in computational learning theory, which is a subset of artificial intelligence. And this is also part of how he secured this multi-billion-dollar federal contract to provide transportation services for migrants. However, then when the university was asked, hey, has this guy ever gone to this university at all.
Yeah.
When the university was asked, "Is this guy bothering you?" They were like, "Who is Tony Capone?"
Yeah.
We've never heard of this
Literally,
man.
no. We would never admit an Italian.
Yeah.
So I mean,
We've got a policy on that.
Is that it? Like, because I don't care. Like, lying about your graduate degree, you should be able to lie about whatever degree. Like, unless you're literally like a surgeon or whatever, I do not care. I promise you, I don't. It should be legal to lie about anything.
So you think it's like, in order to get this like multi-billion-dollar federal contract, it's like if you can lie well enough,
basically,
then you get the multi-billion-dollar.
Like those two guys who did the arms dealing. You know, maybe they got in over their heads.
The war dogs.
The war dogs. Is it a crime to war dog? Probably, but
maybe.
Maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe that's the kind of agility that our country needs.
Meet me behind the bushes next to the Soviet tank.
So Capone then said
go war dogging.
Said to the Times Union, not the Times, on Thursday, that while he did not have a master's degree, he had received his undergraduate degree in computer science from a, quote, accredited university I will not name.
Cool.
Oh, this is very much like I've got a girlfriend, met her on holiday, she goes to a different school.
Hollywood Upstairs Medical School.
Well, or in this case, Hollywood Upstairs AI Laboratory.
Excuse me, yeah. He went to like Neary Oxman's Deniable Media Lab.
We're trying to program Judy Garland. Just imagining like AI lab, but it's all like ragtime old Hollywood type stuff. We're gonna make a picture. See, we're gonna do it all with computers. The Boffins over here built this difference engine. We're gonna make a tap dance.
Doing the MIT speech that's like, looks to your left, looks to your right. One of you is not going to graduate MIT, except it's like if you are caught, MIT will disavow all knowledge of your activities.
I'm a deniable operative. I'm in the K cadre at MIT. If you build a really stupid ambulance, we will deny all knowledge.
Here's the fun part. On Capone's CV, he claims that for all of his degrees, he earned summa cum laude honors, but spelled it some cum loud.
Some come loud, some come quiet, but we all bust in the end. So that's like something that fucking Prospero would say in Gladiator.
Maximus, some come loud, some come quiet, but in the end, all must bust, Maximus. All must bust.
Yeah. So this is the guy who, again, all of this
summer come loud or smoking that doobie. The most weed smoking undergraduate gets the summer come loud. The valedictorian. I was honking on that ganja.
Yeah.
Smoking that cheese like a Jamaican.
So this is
that's I think it's from 21 Seconds to Go. I think it's one of those. It's smoking that cheese like a Jamaican. Yeah.
So anyway, so this is Tony Capone.
Yeah.
So he also has made some seriously other weird claims about AI, where he says that DocGo, you should invest in it because it stands out for the competition because it's so AI based. He says at an investor conference with Morgan Stanley, he spoke about a technology that allows the company to help migrants, a 50-step process to become self-sufficient.
Cool. Okay.
What are the steps?
Okay.
Doesn't say. B-boy.
Clown college.
Graffiti.
Yeah.
Squeezy nose.
He says, through the 50-step technology...
Jesus. Scarface only had like a 4-step plan to become like fully self-actualized as an immigrant in America, right? First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women, and then you are Scarface.
Reproduce.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's like a 4-step plan. The other 51, God knows where they come from.
But see, it's like the people at ambulance when someone calls in saying they've got the hiccups. It's the scene from Scarface where they're like laughing and the money is coming out of the counter. So $100 bills like flying all over the room.
So they also have some other seriously strange things as well, like a vehicle they call the Hoverlance.
Fucking what? What, so it can rescue you from a swamp? It could, if you've got the hiccups and you're in an active minefield.
No, so it is an ambulance, a normal ambulance, or normal ambulance,
yeah,
but with like tank treads and like a quadcopter.
What? Can I see a picture of this? Is there an image?
There it is.
Why?
What? What the fuck? I cannot stress enough how much this looks like something from Team Fortress 2. Like, this does not look like a real vehicle.
Staffed by only the finest, like, theme park actors. And no disrespect to theme park actors as a profession.
When you sign up for ambulance, you've got to choose a class. You can either be a thief, berserker, demolitions.
So DocGo will display the nation's first all-electric zero-emissions ambulance as the Hoverlance, a concept vehicle created to provide emergency response to any patient anywhere via land, sea, or air. It's
Sea? It doesn't have a sea going on. That thing cannot fucking fly. This is a Mercedes Sprinter van with 4 propellers crudely welded on the roof. These are not big enough to make something that heavy fly. No, zero chance. Have you seen how big a helicopter's blades are? And a helicopter is so much lighter than that fucking thing. And it's got 4 individual tank treads.
I also imagine it can't really operate like in most airspace.
well, it would
I feel like that's like a major
Yeah,
issue.
if
Being
only-
shot down by the RAF, unidentified ambulance.
Yeah, being able to get an ambulance to you by air, if only there was some kind of, like, thing for that, some kind of, like,
Some kind of
ambulance
air
of the
ambulance.
air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, well, better invent this Mercedes Sprinter.
It does always make me laugh how around London you very rarely see an actual air ambulance, but you constantly see the cars that say air ambulance on them, and it's like, I don't think so, mate.
Stealing
I think-
valor. Yeah, you might be
Yeah.
in the
God,
air
the
ambulance
cuts
team,
are
but,
kicking
like,
in.
Yeah.
So, New York City is DocGo's hometown, said Anthony Capone. Our longtime partnership in the City Field has allowed us to support sports events with ambulance transportation and in-stadium emergency medical services.
Do you like the Mets so much that you hurt yourself?
We're looking forward to showing up for our home teams and showcasing our wonderful Hoverlance for all anticipated 40,000 fans. So, we also alluded earlier to improper provision of meals to migrants. In
the
their
really
care.
bad thing.
The actual bad thing that he did, but that was
Aside
sort of
from,
fine.
like, killing your nan
Yeah.
with the landing
Yeah.
the hover Mercedes on her.
Yeah, they
So-
gave them the shit that billionaire who's obsessed with being young eats.
Basically, New York City would pay tens of thousands of dollars a month to DocGo or Ambulance
Mhm.
for meals that were supposed to then feed the migrants that were in their care, which mostly ended up getting thrown away.
And I presume they spent that all on meals for the migrants, right?
Well, so this is the difficult bit. It's more about sort of mismanagement and an unwillingness to sort of improve standards than it is about profiteering, or at least so it seems from the when I've been able to learn about it, because they would provide the meals were provided on what's called a pass-through basis, which is which is they agree as part of the package of services to provide the meals. New York City pays for them, but they don't get like reimbursed.
Mhm.
So they wouldn't have made huge amounts of money. They just wasted a lot of the city's money, basically.
Right, okay.
They made a lot of money by providing a kind of slapdash and substandard service. That's how they make the money, not by like this one weird meal thing.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. This
so-
one weird meal.
Yeah. Ambulance service shocks hotel full of migrants by providing perfect moldy
Chow
chicken.
mein with gravy?
Why is an ambulance service doing this? Like, what?
Who else would? You know why? It's because you got Tony Capone at the head of it, who saw a big no bid contract
Yeah.
and was like, okay, we have cars, we'll have a go. We have a staff of haunted house performers.
The man who loves to say yes. Absolutely.
We've got a Mercedes Sprinter that can fly, allegedly.
Yeah,
Just
so
dumping chicken jalfrezi for ones out the back of the hovering Mercedes.
Yeah, that's right.
so
Throwing them down like it's a leper colony.
So a DocGo supervisor at the Brooklyn Vibe Hotel, VYBE, which records say houses.
Named after
Hotel.
a kind of sex toy, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or it's like the Rimmel get the London look, get the Brooklyn vibe.
which reports 184 meals were wasted at lunch alone. The supervisor,
Wait, out of how many?
About 200.
Jesus.
Well, and it's because right, they are giving this food to people who are in their care, and the migrants are quite rightly looking at it and saying, "This is basically punishment as food.
Imagine
this is
the
disgusting. I will not eat it."
Like the desperate shit that you've had to go through to get from fucking like Guatemala or whatever to New York City, and for the food to be that bad that you're like, absolutely not, is
So
like 90% of you as well. That's
yeah.
Jesus.
So
What were they
supervisor.
serving them?
Well, I'll tell you about it. The supervisor, nevertheless, of course, checked the yes box when answering whether the migrants enjoyed their meals, a common response from supervisors despite vast evidence to the contrary.
Mm-hmm.
So written responses, even though they take yes, include clients angry and claim that the food has mold and is making them sick, even as she checked the yes box on whether the migrants enjoyed the food.
That's some like form jutsu there, by the way. That's like high level bureaucracy to be like, was the food enjoyed? Yes. Comments? Everybody fucking hated it.
Yeah. But
Right.
they enjoyed the complaint, you know?
You know,
Maybe they
One
enjoyed
thing to
it
talk
at a sort of
about.
higher level that we're not equipped to discern.
One migrant from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, said, the first day I ate this food, they had to take me to the hospital.
It's convenient that they're an
They
ambulance.
just left me in the woods.
Yeah. But, you know, it's basically like, we know that in the U.S. prison system, bad food is used as punishment.
Yeah, the
Like, that's a
neutralize.
thing that happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also for profiteering.
Yeah, that too. And so, and in this case, it's the same thing, right? Where they are willing to, and again, like using a lot of political space that's been opened up for them, just be like, yeah, we are going to essentially keep people coming to seek asylum in the country trapped in like a Red Roof Inn in suburban Buffalo, giving them inedible food.
The one good review is like, this food gave me the hiccups, but imagine my delight. But when 2 theme park scare actors appeared with a paper bag.
So, and again, all of this happened before the contract was awarded for them to like take on more ambulance services in the UK.
Do you imagine that any sort of like ambulance service in England has a person who does due diligence, who Googles any of the people that they give contracts to, or who even listens to Trashfuture?
No. The bare minimum, which is listening to
Yes,
Trashfuture.
exactly.
Above that is Googling it.
Yeah. I want to see Patreon receipts from every ambulance trust in England and Wales.
So this is from a short seller report, which is short, DocGo. They say that the problems go even deeper, where billing practices that former employees say amount to Medicare fraud, with one saying, I would finish the patient care report, I'd hit send on the tablet, and it would go to an office in the Philippines, who were basically looking that had I written the report to squeeze every possible dollar out through whoever insurance company was paying for that particular
And
trip.
every ambulance company works this way.
But this one just has an office
Yeah.
to do it on purpose.
Yeah,
it
the fraud department, not the department that helps you avoid doing fraud. Quite the opposite.
Uh-huh. The lawsuits exposing multiple allegations of forging signatures on documents, billing for COVID tests that weren't actually performed, cultures of cover-up rather than comply, where management covers up mistakes in patient care issues. And this actually is evidence from the UK subsidiary, where and again, this is a report from the Times saying NHS ambulance service, this is in 2022, doctored documents to cover up truth about deaths, where they were linked to the deaths of almost 90 patients, and yet they're still in post.
He's not dead, he's just resting. He had a nasty case of the hiccups, now he's having a little rest.
Yeah. And also, leadership has a long history, this short seller report goes on, of lies and connections to fraudulent schemes, where 2 key people were at companies that the DOJ charged with fraudulently overbilling the government. Another's business was caught up in the unraveling of the second largest Ponzi scheme in history.
Yeah, but this guy, he lied about his degree, though, so...
Yeah, and a board of directors whose backgrounds include multiple pump and dumps, penny stocks, delistings, reverse mergers, and connections to other large Ponzi schemes. Also, you wouldn't be surprised, they have like a little no-name auditor like Greensill. Like Greensill also had like Hollywood upstairs like accountancy office doing their auditing.
Single
It was
Australian man.
Bondi Beach downstairs accounting,
Their company's quote AI subsidiary in Estonia is just one guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is from this week.
Okay.
DocGo, a provider of mobile health services, this is from also PR Newswire, has initiated a stock repurchase program as provided by the company's board of directors. Basically, they're taking money that they have, again, that we, the UK taxpayer, have given them in many cases, to repurchase its stock, which basically they repurchase it, which creates demand, which drives the share price up. It's one of the ways that like companies use lots of money they have to induce more people to invest. It gets the stock price up.
Gets the people going. It's provocative.
The new CEO of DocGo, Lee Beanstalk.
I sold my ambulance for these magic beans.
Lee Beanstalk.
Lee Beanstalk.
And his assistant, Jack. Yeah.
Expressed confidence in the company's performance and future potential, citing the recent share price decline as not indicative of the company's value. Yet I know Britain. If I know Britain, we are going to be hanging on to them by our nails as they just like flounder.
He said to investors, if you can hear anyone muffled from the next room saying fee, fi, fo, fum, please ignore that. It's an issue with the AC.
Yeah, because
All
again, no one else is going to do it. And the alternative is no ambulances.
Anyway, that was Ambulance. A nice bookend to having had Alice on the podcast.
She was a good host, I think.
Yes.
And I hope this November character is also, rewarding.
Anyway, I want to thank you all for listening. Remind you that we have a Patreon. It's $5 a month. And that we have a live show in March.
We do, on the 13th. But it's at Backyard Comedy Club in East London.
Oh, back there again.
Yeah, do not be fooled, as some people on the Discord were, by the fact that it's being produced by Big Belly Comedy and thinking it's at Big Belly Comedy Club, which is in Vauxhall. It is not.
That is so confusing.
It is on the other side of London at the Backyard Comedy Club.
Mm-hmm. It's in Bethnal Green.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So do come down to that. We'll be doing our usual, yuck-em-ups.
That's right. Yeah, we're doing gross stuff. Riley's going to be firing ping pong balls out of his pussy, so come down to enjoy that. That's the grand finale. I have tour dates. Brighton on the 6th or the 5th or the 3rd of March. Please come to that. I have Leicester, 2 shows in Leicester, my old show and a new show on the 18th of February. And Australia. So many Australian dates in March and April, and also there's some whips and stuff happening in London in February, so please come to those. Well, Riley's left the room. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.